President Volodymyr Zelensky strode onto the opulent U.S. House floor on Wednesday night in his trademark green military garb to strengthen his supply line. He had just returned from a trip to the bloody front lines in Ukraine. Zelensky adopted a combative appearance on the dais, where heads of state are more often seen wearing suits, and spoke with assurance in English, as he declared joint victory, in what he described as the defeat of Russia in the battle for the minds of the world. Although he avoided addressing the obvious, the speech was a direct appeal to Republican lawmakers who will be in charge of the House in January to stick by Ukraine. He clarified, calling it investment in democracy, that your money is not charity. Later, he pleaded for continued solid, bicameral and bipartisan backing for Ukraine. His comments came as Congress prepared to vote this week on a spending bill for the entire year that includes approximately $45 billion in emergency aid for Ukraine and NATO allies. Since most lawmakers didn't learn about the speech until Tuesday, it was rushed. Zelensky may have had one last opportunity to address a joint session of Congress on Wednesday before Republicans, some of whom are gradually growing wary of America's generous support of his country, take control of the House next month. In less than a year, the U.S. has given more than $21 billion in defense assistance. This includes the $1.8 billion new weapons deal that was unveiled earlier on Wednesday when Zelensky met with President Joe Biden at the White House. Is it sufficient? In his speech to Congress, Zelensky made a joke about it, referencing his experience as a comedian. Later, he noted that because there won't be any electricity, Ukrainians will be celebrating Christmas by candlelight, not because it's romantic, no. The majority of the nation's infrastructure and electrical grid have been destroyed by Russia. Zelensky declared, even without electricity, the light of our faith in ourselves will not be extinguished. Zelensky previously delivered a video message to U.S. lawmakers in March. When comparing daily Russian attacks on Ukraine to the shocking American attacks of Pearl Harbor and 9/11s, he said at the time, early in the conflict, we need you right now. He brought up U.S. military history once more on Wednesday, mentioning the Battle of the Bulge, which took place during World War II, and saw U.S. troops trapped in the snow after landing in Europe on D-Day. Brilliant Ukrainian soldiers are doing this to Putin's forces this Christmas, Zelensky said. Just like the brave American soldiers, who held their lines and fought back Hitler's forces during the Christmas of 1944. Establishing an alliance between the US and Ukraine, Zelensky's speech was compared by historian Doris Kearns Goodwin to one delivered by Winston Churchill on Boxing Day, 1941, following the attack on Pearl Harbor. He has already convinced the American people that we are all in this together before stating that they will carry out the fighting for us. Just give us the means, and we will complete the task. Churchill said that, according to Kearns Goodwin. Since Ukraine, which is significant, is not an official member of NATO, the treaty alliance Putin fears, this perception is crucial for the US. Concern that Putin would be aroused against NATO is one of the main reasons the US has not offered Ukraine more direct assistance. The ultimate platform for a foreign president in the US, and possibly the entire world, is an address to Congress. Vladimir Putin, on the other hand, cancelled his yearly year-end press conference. One of Nancy Pelosi's last acts as Speaker of the House before handing over the gavel was to arrange Zelensky's appearance. She paid a surprise visit to Kyiv earlier this year to meet with Zelensky. He gave Pelosi a simple Ukrainian flag bearing the signatures of soldiers from the besieged city of Bakhmut, pleading with lawmakers to support Ukraine. She presented him with an American flag flown over the US Capitol, which he then carried out of the room. When he faced then-President Donald Trump's request for him to look into Biden in exchange for military assistance years ago, Zelensky could not have imagined the White House reception that took place on Wednesday. And right there in the chamber where Trump was removed from office 3 years ago for pressuring Zelensky, Zelensky was thanking Americans for their assistance against Russia. A letter to Putin for Putin, who believed that this war, which began about 300 days ago, would end quickly, seeing Zelensky faded in the epicenter of American power, must be a nightmare. Standing next to Zelensky, Biden said, it was crucial for him, Putin, and everyone else to see that President Zelensky and I are united, two countries together, to make sure he cannot succeed. Zelensky and Biden both agree that now is the right time to re-engage the American public, as the Russian war approaches its one-year mark, and shows no signs of coming to an end. No clear path to escape. Moreover, no information about a peace summit was provided. Ukraine has performed better than anyone anticipated when Russia invaded in February of last year, but that valiant fighting, with aid from equipment provided by the US and other NATO nations, has only brought Russia's occupation to a temporary standstill. Zelensky supported the notion of a peace summit for this winter, without offering any details. Russian retrenchment from certain areas has previously been suggested by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Zelensky was visiting the country that more than any other, perhaps more than all the others put together, has enabled his country to defend itself so far, said former CIA director and retired Army Gen. David Petraeus before Zelensky's remarks. This was Zelensky's first trip outside of Ukraine since the war began. The new funds pledged to Ukraine at the White House and in a larger $1.7 trillion spending bill that lawmakers must approve before Friday, according to Petraeus, made it substantive. The timing of this, in my opinion, is not just coincidental. Doing that before the next Congress is very important, Petraeus said. The Biden administration will send Patriot missiles to Ukraine as a defensive system that could help safeguard Kyiv and the nation's electrical grid. The new arsenal's ammunition and precision-guided rockets, however, are what will enable Ukraine to go on the offensive. The larger year-end spending bill also includes an increase in U.S. defense spending, which will help replenish American weapons and ammunition stocks, depleted by support provided to Ukraine. When he said that Zelensky's speech and his appeal for continued support came at an appropriate time, Petraeus nodded to these facts. Kevin McCarthy, the head of the House GOP, met with Zelensky and the other three top congressional leaders. McCarthy wants to be the Speaker of the House and needs votes from Republicans who are skeptical of the Ukraine to get there next month. McCarthy declared after the speech, "I support Ukraine, but I never support a blank check. We want to ensure that every dollar we spend is accountable." According to recent polling, the majority of Americans are still in favor of supporting Ukraine and maintaining sanctions against Russia. But in a December survey by the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, the proportion of Americans who think the U.S. should support Ukraine for as long as it takes fell 10 percentage points since the summer to about half. Among Republicans, only a third favored indefinite support. Representative Victoria Spartz of the Indiana GOP, who is the only member of Congress of Ukrainian descent, has voiced doubts about some of the assistance provided to Ukraine and worries about corruption within Zelensky's administration.